The problem with the boys finale. Video by 𝙏𝙖𝙡 Talks.
All right, going into the final episode of The Boys, I was one of those people riding the cope train, hoping the finale would somehow be good and satisfactory, while only being just over an hour. I was wrong. They just had too much to do in too little time. The promotional art for the season had Homelander flying in space.
So, yeah, this was cap, first of all. We got to open a dialogue on this promotion. We got to open a dialogue on this promotional art, bruh. We got to ban niggas from capping in promotional art like this, bro. You know how Japan has that law where, like, the food on the bag has to be the same size as the product inside the bag or some shit like that in order to avoid false advertising? We got to start having that shit with shows, bruh. Because why would they give this insane key visual and then it's just a lie? It just does not happen.
While bombs were going off on Earth, and Butcher walking up to the White House with Homelander and an army of soups waiting on the other side, which, yes, also, I know was inspired by the comics.
Okay, so that's from the comic. Interesting. I didn't know that. I mean, this was still pretty capped, though.
I know it was inspired by the comics. But all this talk of scorched earth and the most epic final fight of all time, and all we got was a 5-minute fight inside one small room. And on top of that, Homelander, who in Season 3 was able to fight off and get away from Butcher, Soldier Boy, and Huey, who were all soups at the time, was somehow getting worked by and couldn't get away from Ryan and Butcher. There's just so much wrong.
Yeah. We're going to have to open a dialogue on that in a second. But I think there's a fundamental issue that The Boys has, writing-wise, that, like, is impossible to circumvent, right? The Boys got to where it was. Homelander got to the position that he's in. And I'm not even speaking in universe, right? I'm talking about out of universe, like the way Homelander is perceived. Homelander was loved as a villain because they intentionally set him up as like this unbeatable obstacle, right? And that worked really well during the beginning of the show when all we had to worry about was making Homelander look as scary and intimidating as possible. But as the show went on and the eventual reality set in that, okay, for this show to work, we're going to have to take him out eventually. Like, it basically reached a point where they had two options. They could either overpower the main characters, the people who had to defeat him. They could either bring them up to Homelander's level in terms of power, or they would have to bring Homelander down to their level. There was no middle ground, or find some new characters, some new soups to work alongside them, which they did do to an extent. But like, I feel like they kind of set themselves up, and I think a lot of villains are written in this way. They kind of get set up, they set themselves up for failure, where, you know what I mean? Okay, the whole point of the villain is that they're scary, right? They're this unbeatable object, this immovable object. But eventually, for the sake of the story, you have to move them. And so it's like they invest all of their like coins. They invest all of their coins in the beginning of the show in getting people into it and getting people invested in this villain without really thinking about, okay, end game, how are we actually going to do this? How are we actually going to get bro out of there?
With this final episode and this final fight, that of course I had to make a video on it, so let's get into this. Remember the Gen V characters, and Marie especially, who's apparently
I never really watched Gen V like that. I watched like the beginning of the first episode.
Similar level to him and could be used to stop him. Yeah, well, she and the rest of the Gen V gang were literally nowhere to be seen for most of the season. Then at the end,
were they trying to set up like a Gen V, I guess, segue into the main series, or like what were they doing with that? And because Gen V got canceled, right?
Of episode 7, Starlight finally asked for their help.
What do you want? Your help.
All right, finally, Gen V's gonna help take down Homelander. Oh, fuck me, I guess not.
She was stated to be equal to Homelander.
To safety for the entire episode instead. Mind you, Marie can heal people, bring people back from the dead. She could have saved Frenchie, saved Butcher, saved Terror, brought A-Train back. She's way too useful.
So she would have, I don't know. I feel like that would have been like the Deus Ex Machina? Deus Ex Machina? I forgot how to say it. I always forget to say that shit. But I don't know too much about Gen V, but the way she's being explained in this video, I don't even know if I would have wanted her to be in the mix like that. If she was stated to be equal to Homelander and had healing powers and all this shit, and we're basically like, okay, we gonna bring like Jesus into this show, bro. Like, what's going on, bro? So I'm kind of glad that she wasn't overly involved. Also, for someone like me who didn't really get into Gen V like that, it would have been kind of confusing.
Why they never involved her. We also learned that Kimiko has Soldier Boy's chest blast, and that's what we'll resort to. You know, same as season 3, when the whole season was spent trying to stop Homelander with Soldier Boy's chest blast, which was the same season the show probably should have ended.
I loved her more, and this is what she would want.
I hear that take a lot. I think season 3 was the turning point. Yeah. I'm sure Amazon wanted to squeeze more money out of the series because I think it probably is their biggest show, if not like Invincible. But season 3 should have been where we wrapped it up.
Now, let's get into the main fight. After sneaking into the tunnels under the White House and getting past the suit-proof sentry room with the help of Ashley, the group enters the White House and finds the Deep. Starlight tackles the Deep, flies him 100 miles away, and slams him into a beach. Yes, a beach. Starlight has no idea that every sea creature wants to kill the Deep, so as far as she knows, she just dropped him where the Deep could be his most powerful. He can't fly, so why doesn't Starlight just fly him far away?
Dead ass. I ain't even peeped that. I ain't even peeped that, bro. Like, yeah, it worked out, but that's dead ass bringing Aquaman to the beach for your fade, bro. That sounds like some video game shit where they purposely go to a character's map so that they're more powerful. Like, come on, bro.
Okay, drop him anywhere and just fly back to help the rest of the group.
Don't you want to be free of it? Of him?
Oh, right, because we need to try and reform the Deep, right by a beach. You know, you could have just flew him like a couple blocks away, dropped him in the street, and had this conversation where you have a bunch of electricity around you, but the show needs the Deep to die by some fish. So Starlight blasts him into the water, and the Deep, Lord of the Seven Seas, you know, the one who swam to the bottom of the ocean in season 1 and figured out that Homelander lasered that plane down. And he's more than likely bulletproof, as most of the top heroes are, and he was able to eat a 45-pound plate to the face from Starlight.
I forgot about that.
Able to punch through brick walls, yet he's somehow packed up by an octopus. But you know what? Durability's not the issue here.
I mean, I'm not too mad at the Deep's ending, honestly. I mean, you know what I mean? Who was really like, you know, who really cared how the Deep went out anyway? I mean, I do think, you know, the way their character or his character was set up, like, yeah, in the beginning, the one sort of, not even redeeming, but the one quality you could kind of feel bad for him about was like, oh, he was kind of isolated because of, you know, his whole fish thing. And so him going out because of the fish is I'm not mad at that. I do think they could have gone a decent redemption route with him, but I don't think the whole 7 should have got their redemption tour, bro. Like, we already got A-Train. I don't need the Deep becoming a non-asshole either. I'm fine with him having an unceremonious death.
Maybe the octopus went up his cheeks. The problem is, the motherfucker swims slower than me. You're telling me he swims like this, and yet he can swim to the bottom of the ocean? There's scenes in season 1 that imply that he's a fast swimmer. But whatever.
He should be like Aquaman swimming, flying through the water.
And Huey and MM are able to take out O-Father with, well, I don't think I need to say it, but if you watch the episode, you know what it was. And while Homelander is live on every device in America telling everyone that if they don't believe he's God, he'll kill them, Butcher and Kimiko roll up. Everybody who thought Homelander would fly across multiple cities lasering people dead like this show has been hinting at for years, yeah, get fucked. That's not happening.
Which I feel like that could have been, and you know, niggas would have hated it anyway. Niggas would have hated it regardless. But I feel like if they wanted to go out with a bang, they should have had Homelander do some wild shit, bro. They could have, you know what I mean? Have him go out doing one last moment for us to grab onto. But I also get why they didn't do it. Because at the end of the day, he was all talk. You know what I mean? He was like an impudent child in an adult demigod's body. But if they just had like the poster where he was floating above the earth and, you know, all that destruction. If they just had him do, because I think that's the one thing we didn't get from Homelander, really. You know what I mean? I expected that one moment where we really just see him go, man, fuck it and let loose. You know what I mean? At least kill a couple thousand, my boy. You know, I needed that like to solidify him. I still think he's the most iconic villain to hit the screen in the past 10 years. Maybe besides, I think I saw someone in here earlier saying Thanos, even though I guess Thanos originally hit the screen debut back in Avengers 2012, 2013, whenever that was. But regardless, I do think Homelander is going to go down as one of the most iconic of this weird streaming era we're in, along with Omni-Man, along with, you know, whoever else. But I needed to see, like, you know, I needed to see some heinous shit from him. When I look back, the most heinous shit he did was the plane shit. Not saving those people on the plane. Which, like, don't get me wrong, that was fucked up. But it's like a fucked up by, you know how they say you can lie by omission? It's like fucked up based off what he didn't do. It's an inaction that made it fucked up. I needed to see him do some villain shit. I needed to see something fucked up come from action. You know what I mean?
What happens is Homelander tells everybody he's going to do it. Now, a couple things I want to point out. Number one, Homelander was told Kimiko has Soldier Boy's blast by Frenchie and now by Butcher, so he knows he should take her out first. Number two, he has no significant upgrade or downgrade after taking V1. Don't know why people think he got this massive power boost. Maybe because he withstood that uranium better this time around, but Frenchie wasn't doing too bad either. So I'm assuming this just wasn't as potent as the one from earlier. So he's the same old Homelander, just now functionally immortal and immune to the virus. But anyways, here it is. 7 years in the making for this final battle. Homelander lasers Butcher off rip and then misses Kimiko, who's able to hide out of the way. Why would you not hit Kimiko first? She should be the number one priority.
I mean, that kind of makes sense, though. One thing I will say about Homelander, I don't expect this nigga to make smart decisions. I think that's consistent with his character. I think he's a vindictive asshole, and that gets in the way of his strategy all the time. That's the only reason the boys can really even challenge him, because he does stupid shit like hold grudges and go after Butcher first because of his own ego instead of Kimiko, who was like the actual danger to him. You know what I mean? So I don't think that's that bad. That is in character.
And how is Kimiko able to dodge this? He then flies at Kimiko slow as shit, and Butcher is somehow able to...
I don't know what happened to the fights either. But am I the only one who feels like they are so much less kinetic than they were early on? Like, maybe it's a budget thing. I read somewhere that one of the producers said they would need a Game of Thrones budget to really like do everything they wanted to do. But like he said, bro, this jump right here.
Butcher is somehow able to shoot Marty. And how is Kimiko able to dodge this? He then flies at
This
Kimiko
jump right here
slow as
won it,
shit.
bro.
And Butcher is somehow able to shoot his tentacle thing and grab Homelander before he can get to Kimiko. Which is bullshit when we've seen how ridiculously fast he is when he's flying. When he speed blitzed Soldier Boy. Just last episode, he damn near teleported instantly in front of Frenchie. If he can do that, he should have been able to speed blitz her, one tap her instantly. Just earlier in this season's first episode, he was keeping up with A-Train. And in season 1, he saved Butcher from that explosion. So how is he this slow? Also, how are Butcher's tentacles able to stop his momentum? He should just blow right through his tentacles and hit Kimiko. Eventually, he's able to laser Kimiko, and it just like punches her backwards. What the fuck?
Them lasers them lasers was not doing shit. And I know, you know, we're dealing with soups now, so they're not gonna kill like they do with regular people. But god damn, bruh.
Straight through her.
Them shits was tickling.
He not slice her in half like he did in this season? And no, Kimiko's not magically more durable just because she has the chest blast. She was taking damage from those bullets like 60 seconds ago. Don't try to come up with excuses for inconsistent writing. Then he flies at Butcher and grabs his crowbar and wrestles him around instead of, I don't know, flying him into space instantly like he did 10 minutes ago with someone else. Or doing what Bombsight did and just fly into him. That's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
Homelander's supposed to be the most powerful suit, but Soldier Boy was hurting his hands on Bombsight. Bombsight was destroying everybody. And then we have Homelander here, struggling. It just doesn't make sense. Literally 10 seconds later,
they had to weaken him.
Into the ceiling
they had to weaken him, bro. That's the only way. They wrote themselves into a corner with how strong he was.
Holy shit. We just saw him fly somebody to space instantly.
Also, like, why was this nigga even added for real? Let's keep it a stack. Like, I get it, but I guess this just goes back into the season 3 thing, right? But when I saw them add him and like, which opened up a whole new plot thread, I was like, all right, bro, can we just focus on all the unsolved shit that we had? Had a nice song drip. All right, bro.
Why would he not do that again? or just fly Butcher out of the building and get himself to safety. Also, how is Butcher putting up this much of a fight? Through this whole show, especially in the earlier seasons, we're told and shown that Homelander is the top dog, the most powerful soup, only one being close to Soulja Boy. That's why we spent multiple seasons trying to come up with a plan to stop Homelander, because he's just too powerful. Yet Bombsight mopped the floor with Butcher instantly, and in season 3, Soulja Boy mopped the floor with Butcher too. What has happened to Homelander? Kamiko then tries blasting him, and again gets laser punched into a wall instead of completely sawed in half or melted down to nothing. Homelander tries flying away at a half a mile per hour and gets caught again, and then gets worked bad by Butcher. Unbelievable how powerful Butcher is. He's got to be like the second strongest soup.
Nah, dead ass. That nigga got a fucking Zenkai boost, bro. That nigga Butcher just got broken his shit. And like I said, like, again, they sacrificed what they built up in the beginning. You kind of got to pick, right? Do you want to introduce an indestructible villain? Or do you want to, introduce a villain that can be defeated in a relatively believable way? That's why so many anime go with ceiling villains, I think. Whenever they introduce an indefeatable, quote unquote, indestructible, undefeatable villain, they always have some roundabout way where they defeat them without actually defeating them. You know what I mean? They seal them or something. And that kind of like works around what I was talking about earlier. Because again, introducing an indestructible villain is a risk. You got to find a way to believably kill them, which you're not going to be able to do without significantly weakening them or significantly strengthening your heroes. I guess we could have sealed Homelander or something. I don't know. Like, I don't know how we could have sealed Homelander, but yeah, I get why they had to do what they did, but that doesn't mean I really rock with it like that.
Then Ryan comes in and tackles Homelander before he can fly away again. And we do get this cool moment of Ryan and Butcher squared off against Homelander. Pretty cool. But this was hyped up to be some crazy finale, crazy fight. Again, cool. Homelander is the strongest soup. I was expecting the boys, everyone from Gen V, Ryan, and maybe a couple of other randoms to team up just to be able to blast Homelander and take his powers away. Then
I don't even think y'all hear that flying above? Is Homelander back? But nah, I think that I'm sure that was the original idea. I'm sure that was probably the original idea. Something along those lines was probably the original idea, but I think it just came down to a budget thing. Again, I read somewhere that they had a more ambitious idea that they literally couldn't find the budget for. And so, yeah, nah. I think they just had to go with what they could,
Butcher could come in and finish him off, but no. Homelander then dials in and lands a couple good juicers, but then again, he starts getting worked easily. It's like he's not even the same dude from the earlier seasons, bro. Also, he's lasering both Ryan and Butcher, and it's doing absolutely nothing.
To no avail.
Even though we saw Homelander was able to laser his own skin open when injecting that V1. So how can he not hurt them with his lasers at all? Eventually, they hold him in place and Kamiko's finally able to blast him. And then we get a pretty cool scene with him trying to laser Butcher and trying to fly away, which doesn't work.
That shit was funny as hell. The jumps, it makes me wonder what flight feels like, bro. Because that shit looks so corny when he doesn't immediately go up at fucking Mach 3. Like, I wonder what that shit feels like, bro. You just jump up and you just fly, or like, what do you do?
Like that. Seeing Homelander, who was walking around thinking he was a god, to now being completely powerless was pretty cool. Butcher then starts beating his ass, and Homelander's just begging for mercy like a child, which again, I liked, and it showed that without his powers, he's just a pathetic loser.
Yeah, I saw some people saying he should have gone out cold. Nah, I think he had to go out like a bum. Because the show had basically been pointing out that he was still that abused little child in the basement, deep inside, and he covered it with bravado and pretending and he had layers over that child. But when it came down to it, all those layers were based in his perceived power and his perceived strength. The moment that perceived power and strength, the moment that was stripped away from him, he became that poor groveling little child again, which low key was as sad as it was interesting. But yeah. At least the death was satisfying. It fits his character as A-Train described him to be 100%. I liked A-Train's full arc as well too. I think A-Train was one of the better characters in that series. But yeah, I did like the death. I do think they did that right. I don't think he should have gone out, still tough. I did want to see Homelander, You know, we keep saying scorched earth, right? I did want to see him go scorched earth and light some shit up before he went out, but I'm fine with the death too.
But him offering to slurp Butcher's hog did feel a little bit forced, I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, please, second, please.
What?
He was begging for mercy like crazy.
I kind of like pause, but like, come on, let's look at the show we're talking about now. Like, we're talking about this show that had a 3-episode arc of a giant orgy, like, and we saw some dude shrink and go inside. You know what I'm saying, bruh? Like, it fits the tone of this show. You know what I mean? As corny as it was, it's still The Boys, right? Like, that fits the tone of the series we've watched so far.
On live television, so everybody got to see this. And at a certain point, I almost felt bad for the dude. Almost. Then he jumps right back to saying, I'm the Homelander, and you can't do this in the most zesty voice possible.
Pop this cap
Do this.
Butcher then gives him the crowbar treatment, and the world is saved. For 5 seasons, this has been the goal. Homelander is too powerful, so we've got to make some elaborate plan to take him down. In season 1, Butcher just tried to take out someone Homelander loved, because that's all he could do. Then they blackmailed him with the flight footage, which did absolutely nothing when they revealed it in the season. Then it was alright, we gotta find something to kill him because we can't do it ourselves. First it was Soldier Boy, then it was the virus.
Yeah.
But motherfucker, V'd up Butcher, Ryan, and Sam from Gen V could have just jumped him and packed him up apparently. Clearly we never needed the virus or the chest blast. Then we get the whole Butcher and Huey scene damn near right after this, which was good. It just felt really rushed. This whole episode was clearly rushed because they were too busy promoting Vought Rising. Also, the
What
virus
is
is
Vought
still...
Rising? Is that like a sequel, I guess? Vought Rising. Interesting. I'm not mad at, well, I think they had I would give the ending a solid C. They did everything they needed to do. I just think, you know, they scooped too much dip on their chip in gassing up Homelander, and they just couldn't defeat what they built without making him feel significantly weaker. Just couldn't.
Sprinkler system, so no clue how they solved that. This final episode isn't the worst finale of all time, but it definitely wasn't good either in my opinion.
Yeah.
And my expectations going into this season were way too high considering they were hyping the fuck out
Because
of
they
it.
fucking lied with this shit, bruh.
Scorched earth.
Scorched earth. Scorched earth.
Raka made better fights on YouTube, and I'm not even kidding. Side note, Homelander was moving like this. But yeah, if you want to support the channel and get extra content,
Good shit. Good shit. Yeah, I agree with most of what bro has to say. I was really into the early boys. And it did just kind of fall off for me. So I saw this coming. I still think, in spite of all this, Prime Homelander has solidified himself as one of the most iconic villains, if not the most iconic villain to be put to screen in the past decade or so. They just couldn't give him that ending that he needed to really go all the way through with that. So, you know, it is what it is.